Hello and welcome to today's live stream and welcome to April. In Hawaii, April is a Native Hawaiian Plants Month. So I thought, that would be a great theme for this month's challenge. I'm actually hosting two challenges right now. So it's the Aloha 25 April challenge, and I'm also hosting a 100-day challenge. If you want to know more about that one, you can hop over to my Instagram channel, the Aloha Studios. But today we're gonna paint a Native Hawaiian flower. It's called Ilima. It's this one here. I actually wanted to show you my very own Ilima that I have outside in a pot, but it's just not doing that great right now. Pretty sad about it. It has like white flies, and I treated it with neem oil, so fingers crossed that it's gonna make it. But right now it doesn't even have any blossom, so it's just the leaves. But yeah, so we're gonna paint and draw this flower today. It's gonna be watercolors first and then colored pencils for the details and shadows. Okay, let me just put this down real quick. I have a new desk. I love this one. This is a desk that you can move up and down, so I can work standing or sitting. It's really cool. So love this one, but this is why my background looks different from what you guys are used to. Okay, let me quickly show you. Okay, over here I have a really good book about Native Hawaiian plants. It was published by a close by botanical garden that really caters only to Native Hawaiian plants. All right, here we go. This is the Ilima flower. By the way, this is also the flower designated to the island of Oahu. Every island in Hawaii has its own designated color and flower. So, and usually when you go to a parade, then every island is represented by that color and flower. So for Oahu, it's the flower Ilima, and you can see the interesting shape it has. It's like almost like an asymmetrical heart shape for each of the 5 petals. Now, this flower can be found close to the beach, for example. I've seen it close to the beach, very low to the ground. It's called like a crawling shrub and flower, very hardy. So I'm not really sure why it's not surviving in my pot, in my yard. But I've also seen this as a large bush. So it's a very sturdy plant. However, those flowers, they're about this size, they're very delicate. And the crazy thing is that in Hawaiian culture, this flower is used for making lei, the flower garlands, but they don't use the flower like with the face, pointing outwards. They use them like this. And it takes about 500 to 1,000 of these very thin, paper thin flowers, just like next to each other, strung up on a lei to make one strand of lei. And they usually make 2 or 3 and then wind them together. So luckily, we're not gonna make a lei today. We're just gonna paint one Ilima flower. I'm gonna turn the camera around. I have you guys also on my iPad so I can see the chat. Okay, hold on. You know what's gonna happen. I'm gonna, yep, turn around the camera. Here we go. Okay, you can see I also changed, I can show you guys. I changed my whole desk setup. So I used to have just a glass tabletop. You can see that over there. And I was just so not happy with it. I used to just put a piece of paper, background paper on top, and it would slide around. And I just had, I also had like 4 of these lamps on the table, and they would just always be in the way. It was really tricky for me to work with that setup. So I bought a big ring light here and strung it up. Not very professionally, just with a hook in the ceiling. I do like the diffuse light it makes. So yeah, at this point I'm just hoping that, you know, it's gonna last longer than my last ring light, which only lasted for about a year. So hopefully this one will make it longer. So far, so good. I've had it just for a few days though. Okay, let's see. As always, please let me know about, you know, zooming in, zooming out, audio quality, if you can hear me all right. Let's see. Okay, let's put this one down again. And this is the sketchbook I'm going to be using today. A little towel here on the side. Mixing palette. All right, let me just check the chat. Hello, everyone. Hi, Mom. Hi, Linda. Hi, Sylvie. Susanna, Carrie. Hello, hello. Okay, so. So as all of you who are here, at least in the chat, know that my favorite materials combo is watercolors and colored pencils. And this is exactly what we're gonna do today. So the base of this illustration will be a flat layer of watercolor. So we're just gonna add all the different colors, yellow, orange, and green. And then while it's still a bit moist, we can already go in with the water-soluble colored pencils. So water-soluble colored pencils have the advantage that they're very soft and won't rip the paper, even if the paper is still a little wet. If you do not have water-soluble colored pencils, no problem. You just have to wait until the watercolor layer is completely dry before you add the colored pencils. I'm gonna use these watercolors today. These are my own handmade Aloha watercolors. I have a medium cadmium yellow called Mango. Then this is a cadmium red orange called Akepa, which is the name of a Hawaiian bird. And I have Kupukupu. That's the name of a Hawaiian fern. This is a mix of yellow and green, and it's kind of like this beautiful lime green. And I also am using a paint called Ilima. I kind of thought, you know, that's fitting for today. It's a very light yellow shimmer. I'm gonna just use that for a few highlights in the flower. If you don't have Aloha watercolors, no problem. You can just use any kind of yellow you have, orange, or you can just use red and mix it with the yellow to get orange, and a light green. I will be using two different sizes round brushes, a size 10 and a size 6. Depending on what size your illustration is, you might want to go larger or smaller with your brushes. I have a mechanical pencil for the sketch. The sketchbook I'm using today is a Moleskine. I like it because the surface is fairly smooth, even though it's a cold press paper. So it's really good for illustrations that have fine details or when you go over it with colored pencil. I think I'm going to use it like this today, maybe. Yeah. Okay, and I have a little ceramic palette, which I might actually not really use today, but I have it here just in case. It's so nice to have a larger workspace. You can just easily move things around. So good. I used to like really struggle to get all my desk lamps and this, you know, the background paper in place. All right, this works so nicely. And I'm gonna put my iPad over here so I can see the chat. All right. So tell me about you guys. How is it going over there? So Sylvie and Taki are and Susanna are over in Germany. I know you guys had winter and spring and summer like all mixed into one in the last weeks, right? It was pretty crazy from what I heard. Hello, Kate. Hello, Kate in France. Okay, so this I think should be good. Maybe I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see the sketch better. All right, how is this? Okay, so Sylvie says, yeah, it was crazy. Went from wet to warm and nice. Oh, very good. So today we have spring vibes, at least over in Germany. Okay, so for the sketch, if you received my newsletter I sent out yesterday and today, I was a bit late with the newsletter, you received the illustration, the little template, and you know, you can always lay it behind your watercolor paper and then just put this on a window or on top of a light pad. It even works when you use your iPad if you have one, or a tablet, and put it underneath. It's a bit more tricky because you know, usually the light changes. Okay, so I'll start with a curved line. This is where I'm gonna place both my flower and then two of the leaves alongside. Let's see, okay, let's move it a little more. So the flower is over here, the center flower will be over here, and then I have a large leaf coming out here at the top, oval shape with a pointy tip. Circle for the flower, another large leaf down here with a pointy tip. And then you can add more leaves on the side. You don't really have to stick to my template at all. You can just go wild with your leaves and arrange them in a way that looks pleasant to you. All right, and then I'm going to add some circles which indicate the little flower buds. And a half open small flower here. Maybe a tiny leaf sticking out here at the top. Another bud here on the side. How about, kind of want to add something here in the corner. This seems so empty here. Could maybe add another flower bud coming out here. So for a standalone illustration like this, this would be totally sufficient. But of course, you know, you can also play around with things like leaves coming in from the sides if you want to fill your whole paper. Then it's almost like creating a pattern. All right, so this is our sketch. Okay. Hello, Elke. Oh, somebody else in France. Oh, very nice. Okay, next, watercolors. So let's move these over here. And I'm using my large size 10 round brush. My mom says she loves my yellow hibiscus. Thank you. Oh, the Ma'ohauhele, this one? Yeah. I find hibiscus very difficult to draw and paint because of all their folds and shadows, and yeah, those always give me a little bit of a headache, but I mean, it is Hawaii's state flower, so I figured I'd better learn how to draw them. I'm still not there, but yeah, just, you know, keep on trying. So what's the most difficult flower for you guys to draw? like, especially a flower that you would love to draw, but you know, it's really difficult for you. Okay, I just decided I'm gonna go into that sketch one more time and just add a few more strokes to make things easier, especially for this particular flower. So circle in the center, and then we're gonna go around from the center and draw heart shapes that are a little bit asymmetrical. So one side is a little smaller than the other one. And it has 5 petals that slightly overlap. However, to make it easier on ourselves to paint this flower without complete disaster in blending and mixing, we're gonna just leave a little bit of a space in between the petals. Just go around. You turn your paper if it's more comfortable for you. And then what I've seen with this flower, that's very consistently going up on one side. In this case here on the left-hand side, it's slightly higher and then lower on the right-hand side. It's almost like a clover shape with 5 petals. Okay, here we go. And then as you've seen, I mixed mango cadmium yellow with a lot of water, and now we're just gonna add a wash of yellow quickly, quick strokes. Here we go. And then also to all the little circles. Again, if you want to have a more elaborate sketch, so you can relax more and not have to think about, okay, where is the bud gonna be exactly, what's the shape gonna be exactly, then please feel free to make the sketch more elaborate and detailed. I usually like to just go and roll with it and add the details and everything with colored pencil. But it's really totally up to you and however you feel more comfortable with painting and drawing on your own time. Okay, next, while this layer is still wet, we're gonna pick up a little bit of orange and just drop it in the center here. Again, if you don't have orange ready, you can also use any type of red and mix it on your palette with the yellow and then drop in the color. I am intentionally dragging my orange into the petal like this. So it's almost reflecting the same shape of petal here in the center. And a bit more concentrated orange in the center of the flower. Make sure you're not just painting a big, huge blob that goes all across your petals. See how I left some white spaces in between the petals? This is just to make it more clear where each petal is, and also, as I mentioned before, I don't want everything to just blend too wildly. Okay, I'm watering my orange down with some water here, and then adding a little bit to each of my blobs over here and down here. Okay, rinsing my brush. Now the next step would be green. However, because my yellow might still be a little wet, I'm gonna start with the leaves that are not touching my flower. So the ones here on the side. Okay, 1 second. I'm gonna put a piece of paper under my page just because I just noticed they overlap in a way that the paint would actually seep through my previous page. Also, this way I don't have to really worry about getting paint anywhere else because I can just paint over the edges. I'm using a very watery mix, so lots of water, little pigment. This really messy approach truly is my favorite, and I think you have to really get used to an extremely ugly phase at first. I mean, it's literally like just throwing paint onto the paper and just having shapes, very undefined shapes. And you gotta live with live with that for a minute before you can go back in and add details and shadows. But I truly personally find that that's an approach that makes me the most relaxed, because I don't feel like my painting has to be perfect from minute one. I always feel like I can go back in and fiddle with that illustration later on. And just, you know, make it easy on myself. So I should mention that in order to avoid for the yellow and green to mix here, I left a little bit of a white rim around my yellow petals, even though I think they're pretty dry already. This is not 100% cotton paper. It only has about, I think, 20 or 25% of cotton. And this type of paper tends to dry a lot more quickly than cotton paper, which for these type of illustrations I think is a good thing, because you know, no need to use a hairdryer or no need to wait a long time for each layer to dry. Okay, just looking over to the chat, and Linda says, thanks for the perfect timing for this live. I'm between 2 appointments today that are close to each other, and this is helping entertain me. Pretty flower. Oh, yay, great, Linda. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, you know, it's so crazy with the daylight savings time that we do not have in Hawaii, but everybody else on the planet has. So usually I do my live streams at 8 o'clock, but then it changes, you know. Now it's it's 9 o'clock here. And then last week that was 8 p.m. over in Europe, in Germany, for example, but this week it's 9 p.m. It's very confusing. So I'm glad to hear that it still works out for you guys. So I'm just softening the edges here with a brush that I have just cleaned a little and wiped on my piece of fabric here. Just softening those orange edges a little bit. But again, you don't really have to worry about it too much because we're gonna go over everything with colored pencil. However, before we start with the colored pencil layer, I would like to go in and add a few more details to the leaves. I do have to use a hairdryer at this point because it's just not drying quickly enough. So I'll be back in a minute. This is looking good. So you guys, I think I mentioned earlier that I find hibiscus very difficult to draw. So how is it for you? I also, I find peonies very difficult. You know, Pfingstrosen, those are so tricky. I don't know, probably because they have 1 million petals that are all going in different directions and all like really frilly, and it's just, it seems so much. I'm overwhelmed just looking at the flower. Sabine just said we're watching from IKEA Seattle. That's so funny. Are you sitting in the restaurant? We don't have IKEA in Hawaii, but you know, when I still lived in Germany, I loved going to IKEA and then eat the Schöttbüller, the little meatballs in the IKEA restaurant. That was always a treat. I remember that very fondly. Okay, Sylvie agrees with me, right? Peonies, they are so difficult. I mean, just half exploded pom-poms with so many frills and little details. I don't know. I would probably just super simplify it and draw a little sphere, and I don't know. I haven't even attempted it yet, see? Oh, wait, did I? No, I don't think so. Maybe one time. Anyways, sorry. I'm in a very talkative mood today, as you can tell. Next, so let's add some details to the flowers, which is just gonna be the parts in between the veins. You know that I kind of like this technique. It's like a negative space painting technique. So in order to make the veins of the leaf stand out, you paint the shapes in between. I'm mixing my lime green with orange to create more of a moss colored green. Just have to go back and forth a little bit. Would be actually really good to add some black as well. Let's see if I have some black around to make it a little darker. Okay, yeah, that's looking good. I do have some black here. All right, you guys, just 1 minute. If you have black at hand, you can just go ahead and mix in some black. But of course, you don't have to. Or you know, you can just use another green, like a chromium oxide green or a moss green. If you have Aloha watercolors, for example, you could use matcha or monstera. All right, this is a nice mossy green. So again, I mixed lime green with orange and a little bit of black. Okay, and now I'm going in and painting the in-between shapes, and I'm leaving lines to indicate the veins. Again, if you don't want to freehand this, please feel free to draw in the veins with a pencil first, and then you just kind of paint around them. So you can, you know, go ahead and indicate where your veins are. And just draw around them or paint around them with watercolor. And don't forget the center vein here. So we have one continuous line going here through the center. It's also an interesting technique to not mix another shade of green, but to just use the very same green you used for the first wash, you know, that lime green, and then go over it. It's more tone in tone, then it's not gonna stand out as much. So why don't we try this for the next leaf and see the difference? Oh my gosh, I just rinsed my brush in my tea. Oh, heck. Oh no. Or did I? So what I did, my tea is super far away from me on purpose, And I did like this with my brush and then realized this is not my paint water. So now I'm wondering, did I actually touch the tea? I just drank it, so there you go. It's very, very precious tea. I was gifted this tea, so it's kind of like an expensive green tea. I don't want to waste it, so I'm just drinking it. Okay, Takako-san. Haha, Keiko-chan. Restaurant in Ikea, Germany. Ja, da bekomme ich jetzt so richtig Appetit, gell? Ja, gell, also diese Fleischpflanzer, die kleinen da. Sehr lecker. Yeah, talk about food. I will be distracted. Linda says green tea, right? Yeah, because oh man, this is too good because I'm painting with green and making green tea, but it was green before I almost dipped my brush in. All right, center vein and then the other veins around here. And this time I'm just gonna go over the shapes with a concentrated version of my lime green that I used for the background of the leaves. The leaves of the Ilima are actually not really this brownish green color. They are actually pretty vibrant, maybe a slightly darker shade of green. But, you know, I think this is also a little bit of artistic freedom. So you see this is, they have a more bold green in reality, I'd say. So not really mossy green. However, I have to say my own poor plant out on my porch does actually right now have leaves that are more muted colored. Definitely. Not so bright green. So if you guys have tips about how to deal with these stupid white, I think they're white flies, yeah, please shoot them my way. As I said, I'm using neem oil and it seems to help a lot, but it also seems to, I don't know, help killing the plant even. I feel like the plant's not happy about the neem oil. All right, so which one do you like better? Do you like the vibrant green one better, here the leaf, or the more mossy one? I think I want to try something in between. This is almost too bright for me, and then this is kind of, yeah, too dark mossy green. Okay, and here we have the first tip. Okay, Sylvie says, try spraying Spülwasser on them in combination to the neem oil. Spülwasser, so dish soap. You mean dish soap, but a very low concentration with water? But I would prefer using the neem concentrate from the trees. Rinde. Yeah, I'm not sure. I thought neem oil was from a plant from India. Is that right? It smells a little bit like garlic. It's kind of an interesting thing, you know. You'd never think that that would help, but I saved a lot of my plants with this neem oil stuff. Linda says, tornado watch here on, is TN, that's Tennessee, right? Some bad lines of storms last night and then today, and I think Saturday again. Oh my gosh, tornadoes are seriously just extremely scary for me because I've never ever witnessed one and I've never lived anywhere with tornadoes. I really hope you're gonna be all right, Linda, and everybody where you live. That's so scary. You know, I know that a lot of people think that I live on a scary island because we have the volcano here going off all the time currently also. If you haven't seen it, you guys, look up Big Island volcano. Right now we have a 1,000-foot fountain of liquid magma shooting into the air. It's incredible. But it's on the other side of the island, so I'm far away from it. Okay, just one quick word on what I'm doing here, and then I'll go back to the chat. This is a mix now of the darker moss color I mixed earlier with black, orange, and green, and then I mixed it with the lime green to make some kind of an in-between green shade, and I think that's the one I like. Very nice mossy shade here. That's pretty. So totally up to you which type of green you want to use, or maybe you're gonna be crazy as I am today and just, you know, use all of them in the same illustration. All right, let me take a little look at the chat again. Okay, so Sylvie says the oil is sticky and some plants don't like it. Yeah, that's I think what I'm experiencing now too. And neem is oh, it's a tree. Huh. Hey, learned something new again today. And the neem oil, not good for orchids. Ooh, good to know. So you know what? I think maybe I'm putting more strain on my poor Ilima flower now because I put neem oil on it. But I try to really do it just very locally, just really only where the critters were, and not like I didn't spray the whole plant. I actually applied it with a Q-tip, like only to those few spots. You can tell that Ilima plant is very precious to me. I want to save it so bad. Okay. And then Linda says, yes, Tennessee. Okay, TN, you guys, in the United States is Tennessee. Mom says, oh yeah, paintbrush in teacup. Kann ja ganz schnell passieren, gell? Ja, ja, genau. Das, ja, geht schnell. Vor allem, wenn die alle so ähnlich ausschauen. So, look at these are my paint. Hey, Keiko. Shush. Apologies. This is my paint water here, 2 cups, and then this is the beautiful bird cup that Tracy made for me. Way over here. See how far it is? And I still dip my paintbrush in it. Okay, back to our flower. Okay, so Sylvie says that orchids have openings underneath the leaves. Oh, what? That's so interesting. And if you put neem oil on orchids, hold on. Okay, oh. You have like the worst bark in the world, I swear. You are so tiny and your bark is so loud. I mean, really? Yeah, hi, yeah, you're cute too, but you just bark too loud. Can you do like an inside bark, you know, like a little bit more quiet? All right, so you can help me paint this. Okay, sorry guys, Sylvie was saying that orchid have openings underneath the leaves, and when you use neem oil, it's gonna clog them. Ah, but you can also put the neem oil on your plants and then rinse it off again. As you can tell, Sylvie knows what she's talking about. She is a plant expert, especially for orchids. So I'm gonna take all this to heart, Sylvie. Those are really good tips. Thank you. So, and I'm just continuing with my in-between endeavors here. And honestly, I don't think you have to do this with all your leaves. So, you know, feel free to maybe just make one leaf a little darker, but like paint the whole leaf. And then maybe add some of your moss mixture to one of them. All right. Okay, Sylvie says, "You're welcome. Sadly, I don't know much about your plant. Need to read." Well, yeah, because I mean, it's an indigenous plant, which means it's also home to other regions and countries in the world. But I mean, this specific one really truly is a Hawaiian plant. So you probably have never come across it unless you've been to Hawaii and looked at that specific plant. But culturally speaking, the Ilima is very important to Hawaiians. Okay, that's hilarious. Very nice. So, let me show you. My husband just took a photo of what my office looks like right now, with my dog sitting on my shoulder like a parrot. You see that, you guys? I think it's, yeah, like this. Thank you. It's hilarious. Yeah, take the dog. Thank you. He was just barking so loud. I don't know what he was barking. All right. Another very, very well organized live stream today. As always. That's what you're here for, right? Okay, let's see. All right, I think you got the gist of, you know, how to use the negative space technique to fill out the leaves and make the veins stand out. So I'm not going to do this all the way around, but you can, of course. But I want to move on to the next step with adding details and shadows with colored pencil. So you know what? One more thing we can do with watercolor is to add some strokes to our Ilima petals. So I'm going back to my mango mix, my yellow mix here. And then I'm using a size 6 round brush now, and have already for the leaves. Sorry, I didn't mention that. It has a very pointy tip. I'm going to hold my brush upright and then just go back and forth on every petal in a curved line, following the general shape and outline of every single petal. So I'm not making my strokes totally straight. I'm curving them, following this heart shape of every petal. Now, of course, you can do all this with colored pencil as well. You can do the in-between leaf shapes for the veins with colored pencil like this. You could do this with colored pencil, but I do like the mix. So I think you can tell if it's a brush stroke and watercolor as opposed to colored pencil. So that's why I like to do the first couple layers with watercolor and then go over it with colored pencil. All right. Yeah, I'm looking to the chat. You guys find my dog cute? I find him cute too, but he is a parrot. He loves to sit on my shoulder, which is kind of weird because he's a dog. Ciao, ciao, Linda. Good luck with your next appointment. Okay, and now colored pencils. As I mentioned earlier, if you only have regular colored pencil, then make sure everything is completely dry before you go over it, because otherwise you'll rip the paper. If you have water-soluble colored pencil, you can just go ahead and draw over everything while it's still moist and wet. So I have different brands here. I mostly use the Caran supracolor, the Derwent Inktense, and the Faber Castell Albrecht Dürer water soluble colored pencil. I actually couldn't find the colors I used for this particular drawing, so I just you know, try to find some that are kind of similar but not exactly the same. So let's start here at the top. The leaves of the Ilima plant are not they're not they don't have outlines like this. They actually have little notches, or I don't even know how you would call that, but I'm demonstrating now, so I hope that you get what I'm saying. So they look like that. Let's see if I have a photo where that's, oh yeah, you can totally see it here. See, like it's a ragged edge. So we're gonna just go around every leaf, and again you can change up the color to make it less obvious, or to make it blend in with your watercolor a little better. You can also do this step with watercolor, of course, if you want everything to look a bit more homogeneous. And then for this leaf over here, I'm gonna add some shadow at the bottom part of the leaf. I'm using a very gentle pressure. I'm barely touching the paper and going over the first third of the leaf down here with my darker colored pencil. And because this is already dry, I can actually use my regular colored pencil to go over these parts up here. This adds some nice texture, and it depends on what paper you use. You'll have more or less texture come through and show through. But I find that it really creates a type of an organic look, especially for plants, that can make it look really interesting and very organic. So I'm just moving my paper a little bit to see what's still damp and what's already dry. So I think at this point only my flower is still damp, which means I can go in with both kinds of colored pencil if I wanted to at this point. Okay, Mom says, "Hi Keiko-chan, James, your lovely husband, is good helper, right?" Oh yes, thank God. Yeah, indeed. That is the truth. Okay, you guys, well, you can just go around and add little textures, outlines with different colored pencils in different colors. If you like the look of the watercolor leaves that you made, you can also just leave them as is. I like to go back in and add a little bit of color for the parts in between the watercolors to make the veins stand out a little more. So in this case, I'm using a yellow ochre, but you can also use a totally different color. I also like to add colored pencil only to certain parts. So a little stroke here, a little stroke there. For some reason, I also think that makes it look a bit more interesting. And all the parts that are close to the flower can be a little bit darker, especially the ones that are very close to the petals. Imagine that the petals are actually casting a little shadow on the leaves underneath. So we're imagining that the sun is hitting the flower head on from the front. And then these little shadows here would indicate that the petals are casting a tiny bit of a shadow underneath. It also will make the flower stand out a little more. You know, you're kind of defining the edges of the petal by making the areas right next to it a little darker, like this. If you want to really get into it, you can also change the angle of the light, you know, whichever way it comes in, from the left, from the right, from the top, from the bottom, and then cast longer shadows depending on where the light comes in. But yeah, it's getting kind of scientific at this point, so I'm just doing a little bit of darker areas right around the petal. Okay, now let me quickly go around and just add a few more strokes of colored pencil in the veins. I'm using a light green colored pencil at this point. Light olive, beautiful color. Let me know if you want the names and colors of the colored pencils I'm using today. Then I can just put them in the comment underneath this video later on. Okay, as you can see, I'm just going over the watercolor parts with my colored pencil. This is very tone and tone. I like that too, because it just very subtly adds some texture. Adding a little bit more of a dark color here. And how about this? This is almost like a purplish. It's a Derwent coloursoft Loganberry. So this color, because it's a darker, like a reddish purple, is a great contrast. It's both a great contrast for the green and the yellow. It's maybe not something that you would think of at first, you know, to add to green leaves. Why would you add purple? But I think it just deepens the shadows in a way that still looks organic and natural. Rather than using black, I usually try and use a different color, like indigo or dark purple, dark green, dark brown. Okay, Jessica says, yes, please, I'm painting along today and still painting watercolor on my leaves. I know, Jessica, that's a long process. Please take your time. It's really not about rushing this job at all, you know. This is about having fun, taking your time, especially when you learn a new technique. You're not gonna just, boom, have it done. No, you wanna take your time and enjoy the process. Okay, and Sylvie says, I also love the Prismacolor apple green. Ooh, I really like Prismacolor too, but I only own a few. I bought them kind of like in, you know, in stock. No, how do you say it? Single? I only bought single colors, Prismacolor. Gotta check out the apple green. See what I have. I have a really intense green Prismacolor somewhere. Oh, wow, they disappeared. Okay, can't find it right now. So let's just continue. Okay. And Mom says, Keiko-chan, wie schön, dass du diese grünen Blätter malst und immer mehr und feiner entwickelst und wie sich die Blätter tatsächlich entwickeln und fertig werden. Sehr aufregend. Amazing. Thank you so much, Mom. You're so kind. She's so sweet. My mom's the sweetest. Very, very sweet. Okay, let's add a little bit more dark green around here. So your sketch is probably going to look a little bit different from mine. All I'm doing is looking out for stark white areas around my flower and just filling them with a darker color to make the flower stand out more. If you want to not go so extreme, you can also use a lighter green color like I'm doing here, just so it's not as much of a contrast. And then with a lighter green, you can add a few stems for our little round spheres here. And then giving those little blobs a little bit more definition. So we're gonna go around, add a few triangles. To indicate that these flowers are still closed, but they're gonna be in bloom soon. Adding a bit more shadow with my Loganberry colored Derwent coloursoft. And what I did here is add one single line on the side of my stem. I can do this to all of them. Again, this is for more definition of that one single line. At this point, if you have whatever flower you draw, if you have a reference photo, always make sure that you look especially at the contrast, at the light and dark places and areas in that reference photo. Or if you're drawing from life, same thing. One of the most important things when you draw flowers is to recognize where the light and where the shadow areas are. You can define your flower in a way that's much easier than doing everything with just line work. So I hope that makes sense. So instead of drawing in every single line detail, you can indicate the shape of the leaf, of course, you know, with the outlines, but also through the shadow work. So right now I have an orange and I'm drawing in a bit more definition here. So it's like a half open flower here on the side, filling it with some yellow. Oh, and please feel free to go back to watercolor as well. If you're adding some details with a colored pencil and you're like, ooh, that looks, I don't want this look. So you can go back in right here, for example, with some watercolor. So a little bit of a back and forth. And again, don't forget, make sure you use those water-soluble colored pencils so to not rip your paper. Okay, let's see. We have to just add, I'd say, the center of our Ilima flower. Naturally, you can go on and continue adding more details to your leaves. I'm just going to stop at this point with the leaves because I mostly wanted to show you how it's done, and then you can just continue with details on your own. But let's go into our Ilima flower. I'm picking, I have my yellow ochre color, and I have a bright orange, and this is red madder, so madder rose, cupluck, and then my Loganberry purple. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to add very quick fine strokes to define the outline of the petals. Notice how I'm not going all around. I'm just adding a few quick strokes like that. So it's not one continuous line, just a few indicators for the outline. And then when you look at the flower, you can see these interesting little marks in every petal in red. And then also, do you see these little holes in between the petals? So we can indicate all these with colored pencil. And then in the end, I want to go into the center with my shimmer watercolor to add the little stamens here. You can also do this with a jelly roll pen. You know, you can even do it in white so it stands out a little more. Okay, I have my reddish pink colored pencil here, and I'm adding 2 strokes left and right on each petal. One slightly curved, okay, number 5, and then on top a few strokes going all around. Then with my purple color, I'm gonna go over these strokes one more time on one side to darken the strokes. Okay, should I zoom in a little bit maybe? Because we're doing fine work here now. So zoom in. All right, I hope this is okay. Let me know. Next, with my orange colored pencil, adding some more color in the center. And then in here. So it's almost like drawing a starfish in the center of the flower. Okay, I'm switching to my yellow ochre colored pencil and then adding a few very gentle strokes. So again, barely touching the paper. A little bit more texture. This is totally optional. You don't have to do this, especially if you like the watercolor look
of your pencil, of your petals, I mean. Okay, switching to my orange colored pencil again, and very gently adding a bit more color here in between the stroke. Elke says, ist schon wahnsinnig schön und so ein Unterschied mit den Stiften. So she says that it's really beautiful and interesting how much of a difference it makes when you add colored pencil to watercolor. I agree, yeah. I mean, it's really not everybody's cup of tea, I know. But for me, because I love texture, I do really love this technique. Let me get a little eraser. So normally when I make my illustrations, I don't press down with my pencil too hard. In fact, I usually use a water-soluble colored pencil and then try to blend my sketch marks into my illustration. Because, you know, with pencil, as soon as you draw over it or paint over it with watercolor, you can't erase pencil marks anymore. However, you can erase them in between, you know, wherever they are just pencil marks on paper still, you can take them out if you like. It's just a little detail. Okay, let's zoom out and let's just have a look. So when I evaluate an illustration, I usually check out the light and dark parts first. You know, is there enough contrast? I love contrast in my illustrations. So for me, it's all about bright colors and contrast. I want the subject of my painting to pop up and stand out. And I think it does it here in this drawing because, you know, of the dark shadow surrounding my yellow flower. So it really makes the yellow flower stand out more, which naturally also happens because it is a signal color. Yellow always stands out in paintings. Yellow, orange, red, they're signal colors, and pink as well. Especially when you use a complementary color like green to go with it, green or blue, then it'll make, you know, the yellow stand out even more. So the last thing we will be doing today is to add some shimmer watercolor. This is really totally optional. But if you have any type of shimmery watercolor, silver, gold, yellow, it doesn't really matter. Something light, I would say. Or a white jelly roll pen, or, you know, a metallic jelly roll pen. You can add a few highlights. I'm using a lot of pigment here and very little water, so I'm making a very thick, creamy paint. And then adding a few blobs and dots here in the center. So this shimmer watercolor actually has a very subtle color shift as well. So it's not just yellow, it's also a little bit pink, which might be really difficult to see. I don't know if that really comes across here on camera. So adding the stamens here in the center, kind of like a fireworks star shape. I can totally see the pink shimmer of this now too, but I'm not sure, as I said, if it shows up on camera. And why not add some splatters? So let's see. All right, yeah, that's fun. I do want to do a little comparison of my original drawing and the one we did today. Because I always, as you know, find it so fascinating what different types of paper do to your final illustration. So this one over here is Fabriano Venezia. This is a sketchbook by the company Fabriano, and the paper is mixed media and very smooth, almost no texture. And you can see how smooth the illustration turned out. So I think especially within the petals here, you can see the very smooth gradient. Oh, sorry, I just hit my phone stand, apologies. And then this paper, even though I did mention that for a cold press watercolor paper, this has very little tooth and texture. It still is very, very clear that this is watercolor paper with texture, because see how the texture shows up here. This way you can find out what kind of paper texture you prefer for your illustrations, and it can make such a big difference. So if you don't like your illustration, it might also be because you don't really enjoy working with that paper and you don't really like what it does to your watercolor and colored pencil. So try out different papers with the same illustration and you'll be surprised what kind of a difference the outcome makes. All right, let me quickly turn the camera around one more time so I can wish you all a great day and evening. And so, all right. Oh, I'm just gonna hold it. I hope you enjoyed today's session. I have another live stream coming up next week, I believe. I'm gonna put a preview on YouTube so that you can check it out. I think I honestly can't remember right now, but we'll do another live stream next week. I hope you'll join me. As always, excuse me, as always, I would be thrilled if you left a thumbs up down here if you enjoyed today's live stream, and even leave a little comment down below. All right, you all take care. Have a great day, evening, wherever you are. Happy creating and aloha. Bye.